I'm Amanda Knox, and you're listening to Hard Knox. Happy New Year's and welcome to Hard Knox. Today I'm going to be discussing the idea of beginning again. And to help me with this discussion, I've invited my lovely husband, Chris, to join me, as he is my partner in all things creative and philosophical and everything, really.
Hello.
So the idea for this discussion is inspired by the fact that since the beginning of the year, I have begun again in my meditation practice. That isn't to say that it stopped or anything, but I'm going back to the original introductory meditation course that got me truly into meditation for this successfully for the first time. Like, I had tried meditation before using the Waking Up app and I hadn't had success. And this introductory course was so gentle and so straightforward. And I wanted to return to it just to go back to the base principles and rediscover anything new about being a practitioner of meditation in light now of many years of practice, and see if anything, brought up anything in me. Just, I don't know. It seemed like a good idea to begin again. It's a notion that you hear a lot in meditation, and particularly in the tradition that I take part in, which is Zen practice. And so that's what we'll be discussing today. I think one thing that, what do we mean by begin again? Okay, so it's really, it's again, these ideas are really deceptively simple. It means that at any given moment, if you find yourself sort of caught up in a thought or caught up in an emotion or caught up in an argument you're having, or just whatever it is that you are caught up in all the time, because we are constantly caught up in stuff, you can just stop and start over. You're not a slave to the momentum of your past. And your past is not something that predetermines your present or your future, is this idea that, like, and
I
I
was
think,
going to say, like,
yeah.
momentum is a really interesting choice there, because I was getting ready to push back on you a little bit, because you're, in a sense of, like, you alter your reality when you make choices. And if you are having an argument with your spouse, say, and you go down that road with each other for hours, and then you say, okay, stop, like, we need to begin again. Like, you're beginning from a different place now than you
Yes.
were several hours ago. You're beginning from a place of hurt feelings, or beginning from a place of enmity of some kind, whatever it is, right? And you need to accept that, but it doesn't mean that you need to keep the momentum.
Right. And that's a common pushback that people have, and it's a really, really valid one. But before I get into the pushback to this idea, I want to give some, like, concrete examples of how this idea has really played out very well in my life. And the spat between spouses is kind of an ideal one. Can I out you, Chris, on how our New Year's started? Can I do that?
Sure. Out me.
Okay. Our New Year's started with an argument. So talk about just, like, not the best vibes. So Chris had a vision of what he wanted his New Year's Eve to be. And for myriad reasons, including choices of my own, his New Year's Eve did not turn out the way that he had envisioned and hoped it would. And it put him in a decisively bad mood. And his bad mood put me in a decisively bad mood. Or better yet, a better way of phrasing that, and I think the more responsible way of phrasing that, is because Chris had a certain number of expectations, and he was sort of caught up in his idea of what he wanted New Year's Eve to be, and those feelings were disappointed. He allowed that to
I
turn
think I need to
into.
pause you here as you describe my internal mental
Well, no, but I'm
mechanics.
going to reflect. I'm going to mirror that in me, though, because what I wanted to clarify here is my actions didn't predetermine your bad mood, and your bad mood didn't predetermine my bad mood because I had expectations about you as well, that you being in a
Yeah,
bad
but
mood,
this is complicated by the fact that I don't even think that these external circumstances predetermined my mood, nor
oh,
my own
well,
choices and
well,
actions.
can we get to that? Because
Yeah.
this is part of the
Okay.
story. You're jumping ahead in the
Okay.
story.
All right.
Okay.
Jumping back.
You're jumping back
Jumping
into the
back to the place
story.
where we're all judging me. Continue.
Yes, we're all judging you for being a jerk.
Let's sit in
So,
that place. Let's go.
yeah, let's go. So, things didn't turn out the way you wanted them, and you got into a remarkably bad mood. Like, it was not just like a little bit of a bad mood. Like, you were distant and weird. Can you even like describe the feeling
You
of
talking
what?
about the night or the next
Yeah,
morning?
I'm talking about like as the night was wrapping up and you were realizing.
I think I was just irritable. I would just say I was irritable and kind of disappointed the night of.
Mhm. Okay,
I
and
wasn't, wasn't super remarkable, but just like
okay, but
I
like a
was
good
prone to
example.
complaining about things, and I was, and I was disappointed, and I was acting disappointed. You
He
know,
was, yes, like,
yeah.
you know, being a little whiny bitch. And
And then the
you know
next morning,
yeah, and
it was worse and different,
yes, so
and
can
I
you
was,
describe how it
yeah.
was worse and different?
I woke up totally apathetic. I didn't sleep well. I was awake for about 2.5 hours in the middle of the night. Um, but beyond that, even after kind of sleeping in to try and recover from that, I just felt empty. And it reminded me of times in the past when I had verged on suicidal ideation. I just felt like everything was shit and there was no point to anything. And I didn't want to get up and do anything. I didn't want to make breakfast. I didn't want to go for a walk. I didn't want to go get the day or the new year. You know, any suggestions Amanda made of things that might cheer me up just like bounced right off me.
Yeah, and it was a decisively, like, I feel like I'm the kind of person who picks up on people's energy and really feels it, and that's a problem for me because I think that the a little like it sort of triggers a little narcissism in me where I think, "Oh, he is putting negative energy at me like on purpose." Like that's how I interpret it. Is like I feel it so directly that it feels almost like a direct assault, that like you were having this really negative energy. You were radiating negative energy like the minute you woke up, and I was just like,
Yeah.
"Whoa. What is this fucking dude who's in my house and where's my husband?"
Hmm.
Like, "Oh my god. You need." And I in my brain I was like, "Get over yourself. Like, what is wrong with you?"
Just in
And
your brain, in your
yeah,
words, you were
in
also
my
like,
words,
get over it, pussy,
yeah, I mean, I didn't say it
Didn't
that
say
way.
pussy, but like you essentially blamed me for not being able to like cope and handle my emotions.
Well, I was frustrated with you because I felt like not only were you not able to cope and deal with your emotions, but you were making it everyone else's problem too. Like you weren't just content to be miserable by yourself. You were blasting everyone with your negative energy and just filling our house with just like downer vibes, and I was not cool with that. And so at first, I found myself being sort of caught up in this momentum of what felt like negative energy, and it ended up sort of like, his energy was making my energy worse, and then my energy was making his energy worse, and we were just making it worse for each other. And this is where that momentum thing comes in, where like as soon like I think it's really common for people to feel like, well, this is where I'm headed. And like, now it's just like, this is just, we're a train
Hmm.
wreck. We're just headed for a train wreck, and this is going to either explode, or we're just going to, I mean, I don't know how this turns out. I guess people get into fights and yell at each other, or they run away from each other, or whatever. Like, some kind of abuse or neglect is the result of this kind of energy exchange. And this is where the Zen idea of beginning again is really so incredibly profoundly useful. I think, like, on a practical day-to-day level, the act of noticing that you are not just acting, you're noticing that you aren't really making choices. It's the momentum of what is coming before that seems to be predicating your choices. That, like, once you notice that, you just notice it. You can just immediately stop that momentum and go, okay, this momentum is happening, but it doesn't need to happen. I don't need to contribute to this momentum. And in fact, I can diffuse it. I can channel this energy. I can choose to channel this energy in a different way. I can choose to experience it in a different way. And so, what I attempted to do, and this is what I did in my head because it's the lesson that I've learned ever since I, have had kids, is if my husband was my son,
Mm.
what would I do right
Can I
now?
point out that I suggested you do this
Well,
here?
no,
That I
you
was like,
you
you
suggested
know,
that after I already started doing that in my head and
well, you
started
weren't
doing it.
being nice to me. You were still
Well, I
blaming
was
me.
still frustrated
And I
with
was
you.
like, I have a shitty mood, I know, but can you treat me the way you treat Eureka? Because you wouldn't blame her if she had a shitty mood, even if it
Right.
was her fault, you know?
Right.
You'd talk to her with compassion for the fact that she was feeling
But
shitty.
I was already
Yeah.
attempting to do that. So, like, the way that I was attempting to do that was, instead of, like, giving you the cold shoulder, or, like, like, there were points where I was just like, I just can't even be in a room with this guy. I need to, like, put distance between me and this guy because his energy is just so bad. And I would just, like, exit the room as soon as you entered it. And, like, I actively was like, no. And I, like, would go up to you and I would hug you. And I was just like, my first impulse when it's, especially in an argument, when it's beginning again, is to first do things physically, because, like, the physical aspect of it can trigger the emotional aspect of it. And so I was still mad at Chris for being whatever his situation was. But I was like, I need to reestablish connection. This is my choice. So I made an effort to, like, reestablish physical connection through a hug, through holding hands or whatever. Didn't get very far on your end because you were still like, everything
I was
is,
looking into the void.
you
Yeah.
were gone. But at least it got me feeling a little better, and it got me sort of in the, okay, I'm now in aid mode. So, another thing that we learned from the kink community, actually, is there are various different modes that you can be in with the people in your life or your partners. And one of them is, that we challenge each other to be our best selves. And another is we are there to support each other when we are not our best selves. And I was like, okay, right now, my problem is that I have been expecting my husband to be his best self. What I need to do is accept him when he's not his best self and help support him as because I can't make him his best self. All I can do is support him and facilitate him making him his best self. And the first step to doing that is accepting and acknowledging that when he is not his best self. So let's do that. So Chris is like a slug on the couch, just not moving. His only thoughts are tending towards suicidal ideation. as he's staring at our beautiful Christmas tree, surrounded by his loving wife and loving children for some freaking reason. But I'm like, all right, okay, sit down next to this guy, to this slug of a human being. And I hold his hand and we have a little chat. And we're just talking about feelings. He's telling me, where he's at. He doesn't know why. He's feeling depressed. And I was like, okay, I feel like Chris just needs, the mom in me is like, Chris just needs a change of situation. Like, if I can just get him to get off of the couch and go outside, like, I just know that nature is medicine and it might get him out of this funk. How was I able to convince you to do that?
You didn't.
Oh,
You suggested we go for a walk in town, and I was like, no,
okay.
I think the woods are better for
Great.
me.
Perfect. So,
But, I think this whole time I was searching for explanations in the events of the prior night and in my expectations about how I wanted things to go. And then in my sort of that reflection you do upon the new year about like, how did your year go? How is your life going? Are you meeting your goals? What's your new goal? Do you have your 5-year plan or your North Star or whatever? And on each year, we also pick a word that's going to be our
yes.
focus
Oh
word
my God. The picking of the word was the
for the
thing that
next year.
triggered me
Oh, yeah.
so much. So again, like, we pick a word every year and like, I'm looking forward to this at the end of the night. We didn't do popping champagne and at midnight kind of thing because I got too tired, but whatever, like, we'll do our word. We'll take a picture. So we go upstairs. I write down my word. My word of the year is thrive, by the way. How uplifting, how positive, how, whatever.
Huh?
And he's just like, I don't have a word. And I'm like, well, fucking think about a word. And
I've
he's
been
like,
trying to think of one for all day, and I
but
just
you're
didn't have
just in
one.
your bad mood. And in your
Yeah.
bad mood decides to write down your word of the year, which is
I'll show you. It's here on this card. Fail.
fail. He wrote down fail for his word of the year. And
Yeah, that's the
like,
kind of mood I was in
he was
on
in
New
that,
Year's
and like,
Eve.
and
Yeah.
in the morning, like, the worst part about you picking fail as your word of the year was not just that you were just like, that's just a pouty word to choose, but you were trying to like gaslight me into saying that it's actually a positive word. Like, we all fail, and don't we fail better, and don't we fail upward? And it's like, no, you didn't choose that word for those reasons. No, you chose that word because you were in a bad mood. Suck it up and pick a proper word.
I think it's also important to accept your reality, and sometimes you fail at things, and that's okay.
Yeah, you're
And
spinning it
like,
again.
death is a part of life, etc. Right?
You're spinning it again.
But I get it. If I had chosen death, it's not really a good focus word for the year.
Yeah, like, the focus word of the year
I mean,
is
I
the
could
year
make an argument for death, but like, let's not go there right now.
I would have
yeah.
taken death much more than fail.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
So anyway.
I'll note that. So anyway, I was looking for like external reasons why I felt shitty. And one of the things that eventually got me out of the house was realizing that there wasn't a good external reason why I felt shitty. It wasn't because of what had happened the night before. It wasn't even because I had framed things mentally which this is a recurrent problem for us humans, right? Like you want reality to go one way and it goes another way. And you sort of cling to this idea of how you hoped things would be. And then now you're suffering. That even wasn't what was the real cause. Like that, I think contributed to it. But the real cause, I realized, sitting there on the couch, was neurochemical. And I started talking to Chat GPT, and I thought, you know what? I wonder if this new medication I'm taking for some nerve pain in my foot has anything to do with this. And I just asked the AI, what are the side effects of gabapentin? And immediately it spits out a list of things which I knew about, potential dizziness, etc. And then it says mood alteration, anxiety, irritability, depression, in severe
Suicidal
cases,
ideation.
suicidal ideation. And I'm on day 5 of this new pill that I had been thinking of as a thing for my foot and not at all as a thing that would affect my brain. But of course, it's a systemic nervous system alteration. And it suddenly clicked for me that, like, oh, yeah, I had some, less than optimal psychological mechanics happening. I did get disappointed in how I wanted the night to go, but like normally I would be very resilient to that sort of thing. And it wouldn't turn me into a spiral that left me in this place feeling totally apathetic. And now, for some reason, I'm totally not myself and I'm staring at the void and I just want to die. And I was like, this is the fucking gabapentin that's messing up my brain. And I don't know what to do other than to like, change my inputs to alter my brain chemistry. And it's one of those paradoxes where, that like you get endorphins from exercise, that time in nature alters your mood in reliably positive ways. But you're in that apathy paradox of like not wanting to even get up and go do the thing that you intellectually know is going to improve your mood. Right. I don't know, with your like cajoling, I barely managed to like tie some shoes on and like walk out the door with you.
Right. But then we got on into some nature and you had a nice walk in the woods. And lo and behold, it changed your brain chemistry just enough for you to have a semi-decent day that that and it was a beginning again. You're like, okay, I don't have to be caught up in the momentum of this, whatever my brain chemistry is. I can also choose in this moment to do something that I know is going to alter my brain chemistry for the better. Even though like my brain is telling me don't do it. Like I don't have to listen to my brain. I know my brain is stupid right now.
Shut
So
up,
like,
brain, or I'll
shut
stab you
up,
with a
brain.
Q-tip, as Homer Simpson would say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we go out, we go for a lovely walk in the woods, and it puts you on a better momentum for the day. So anyway, so this is this idea of like noticing that you are swept up in some kind of momentum, and then just taking the moment to arrest, like the noticing of the moment, like the noticing of it arrests that momentum, and then you can choose what you want to do with that energy that you have stored up in you. And I think one thing that I want to make really clear is like some people romanticize this notion of beginning again as if it means like there are a lot of Taoists who say that like every single person, the wisest people are people like children, where like they just have a spotlight or they have this like lantern consciousness. Everything is interesting and delightful. And there's just like there's no boundaries between you and the rest of the world. And, that sounds great, except that children are easy to hurt and manipulate. And because they have that lantern consciousness and that interest and that inability to distinguish between themselves and other. And I think some people might understand beginning again as meaning like, let's just start from zero. Right now, let's start from zero. We're starting from scratch. Everything is new. I am approaching everything and everyone with an open heart. In an ideal world, that's great. But as I think a number of us who have potentially difficult or even abusive, like family members in our lives may have rediscovered over the holidays, that like people are people. If you have a family member who is like abusive or manipulative or narcissistic, that doesn't like having a begin again attitude doesn't mean just like acting as if that's not the case, as if you don't
You
know
still
that
have to see
person.
reality clearly, right?
Exactly. And so Zen does not suggest that you erase everything that you know about reality in order to begin again. All it asks you to do is to take what you know about reality and not and to make a wise decision about it in the moment that is grounded not in the momentum of what came in the past, but in your self-awareness of you and what you want to accomplish in the world. Um, so that you are not predestined by your past, you are informed by it. There's like
think
a there's it's an
yeah,
important difference, and it's not even a subtle difference. It's a huge difference between
I want to
acting.
bring an
Yeah.
idea into this, which I think is a crucial element, and that's judgment, right? The whole point of this can't really be accomplished if you're judging others and yourself. I feel like judgment is the thing that keeps the momentum going.
What do
Like
you
it's
mean by that?
what I mean is, so in a purely in a meditation context, like, when you notice your attention drifting, you
Mhm.
don't chastise yourself for failing to meditate. You just
Mm,
notice that and then you just start again. Right.
I
And
see.
when we're in the context of an argument, I'm judging myself for having a shitty mood. You're judging me for having a shitty mood. I'm judging you for not being a good partner and helping me get out of my shitty mood. And our spiral of negative energy is a result of mutual judgment back and forth.
Right, and
And
that
when
judgment being
you know,
grounded in this idea that the person should be other than what they are. Right?
yeah,
And, like, you're so not only are you experiencing a negative thing, but you're experiencing a meta level of negativity because you are like, "This is negative and it shouldn't be negative," right? Like,
yeah. Well, and it's your
no and
fault,
no. Yeah,
and
yeah,
you
you're
know,
to
like,
blame, and, like, so
yeah,
there's a whole other level, or you're being negative and you're doing it on purpose just to like, whatever, like, the all of those sort of meta ways that we
hmm
we make something bad even worse, and it could be even true. Like, there are people who are just in shitty moods just because they want other people to be in shitty moods. Doesn't matter. Like, like, doesn't matter. Like, I think that I mean, it does matter in the sense that, like, that gives you information about, like, how you can trust that person, but,
hmm
like, I think beginning again asks you to pause and just go, "I don't need to I don't need to add those extra layers of meta negativity onto the negative thing. I can just say to myself, "Okay, here's the situation. What am I, the positive human being, going to do about it?
what's
I
my
am not
optimal choice given
beholden
this?
to
Yeah,
this negative energy." Um, and if that means that can mean that that you set a boundary, right? Like, say there's a person in your life who is giving you negative energy, and the best thing, like, if you just take an honest sort of evaluation of, okay, here are the circumstances and here's la la la. The best thing for me to do as a positive being is to set a boundary. Like, that's totally valid. And Zen is completely like
yeah.
cool with that.
It
Um,
it also doesn't mean that you don't need to make amends for things.
mhm,
Like me realizing that my irritability on New Year's Eve is had largely was probably a result of this new drug that's affecting my neurochemistry, and that my apathy the following morning is making me just a black hole of energy in the house. Like, it doesn't mean that other people around me didn't have worse times than they might otherwise have had as a result of my mood. Right. And so beginning again for me is like, okay, I can stop judging myself for feeling this way. I can just look at where I'm at and make the optimal choice. But also, I can recognize, you know what, my friends who I was hanging out with last night didn't deserve to have a bad mood inflicted on them.
mhm,
So I'm going to reach out to them and I'm going to make some efforts to like reestablish connection with them because
right.
I value those friendships.
Right,
And
and
that
that's
actually,
you
you
sort of
know,
that's you taking
yeah,
stock of like, what is the ground right now that I'm standing on? And if it's mucky, like how can I make it nicer? Like, do I want to, if this is the baseline, how do I raise this baseline? Is it is the optimal thing for me to go out of my way to do extra positive energy in response? Um,
Ask you to widen this out because you have some deep experience with the like big macro life version of begin again in some
mhm.
big ways.
This episode of Hard Knocks is brought to you by Hero Bread. So, in our house, we go through a lot of bread because we have two small children who eat nothing but empty carbs.
And let's
And
be
that's been a
real, bread
problem.
is delicious. I like bread too, you know. I like a good bagel or a breakfast burrito, but
But we've been trying to sneak protein, fiber, anything into their diets. And lo and behold, we get Hero Bread reaching out to us and offering this sponsorship. So, what is Hero Bread? Well, it's bread, like, regular sliced white
I
bread
think
or
you can't
seeded bread.
stress this enough. Like, it's bread. It's
Yeah,
fluffy. It's moist.
it
It's
toasts.
soft. It toasts well. It does all the things you want bread to do, but it comes with lots of fiber. It's low net carb, 0 grams of sugar. One of the bagels even has 19 grams of protein.
So, I would give it a try. And if you want to give it a try, you can go to hero.co, that's HERO.co, and use the code word KNOX to get 10% off at checkout.
Really, try Hero Bread. Like, I was skeptical. This is just delicious bread. It's delicious bread, and I feel a lot better eating it just physically in my body than I would have if I had been eating your old fashioned empty carb bread. How do you think about this idea of beginning again when it comes to really seismic shifts in what your life is like the death or loss of a loved one is a begin again situation. Losing a job can be getting a divorce, going to prison, getting out of prison. Like there's various things that can happen in your life that put you in a position where there's a begin again move that you can make that is really a big move and harder, I think, than just in these little argument type things we're talking about. Like, what does it look like in that context for you?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, you're talking about instances of beginning again that are kind of forced upon people, right? Like you don't you don't choose to lose your job or lose your loved one or get sent to prison. Those are like times when the universe forces you to begin
Well, I mean,
again.
let me give you an example of someone I know who failed to begin again after a job loss. This is a person I knew who had a pretty nice job during the dot-com boom
Mm,
and, had a great salary, you know, then the bubble popped, they lost
mm.
their job, and then years and years go by of various forms of unemployment. And this person I saw was always trying to chase that level of cushiness and compensation that they had in their heyday. And because of that, turned down many opportunities for things that would have paid a little bit less, that would have not quite fulfilled them in all the same ways. And to me, it looked like a version of like not really beginning again, but instead clinging to that narrative of the thing you used to have and thinking that's how life should be for me. And by insisting upon that, their life ended up just getting worse and worse and worse over time.
Yeah, I I know what you're talking about, and I know who you're talking about. And yeah, no, that's an excellent example of someone who believes so fully in the American dream, and in this idea that if you go to school and you get on the treadmill of life, that you're going to advance at a steady pace until you die. And that's your life. And I And when the treadmill didn't go, like the treadmill just sort of fell out from underneath you, he just sort of expected that he would just keep marching along as if it was the treadmill would come back, like, and this is an example of, I mean, I think there's a sense of entitlement that's wrapped up into that, where this person is struggling with the idea that since they did everything right, they
Yeah.
should expect a certain outcome. Um, but that person is not in touch with the fact that reality does not conduct itself by those kinds of rules. It's not you put in input and you get
Yeah.
output. That's not how the world works. And the fact that this person is resistant to the idea that he might need to truly begin again as a novice, in a completely different field, and therefore be compensated as a novice in a completely different field. That
And it
is,
sucks, but it's a sucky thing to like
but also,
accept,
how much
you know?
time are you wasting?
Yeah.
Like, if this person had immediately accepted, "Oh, this was a dot-com boom, and this world that I thought
Yeah.
would
Could have
exist
reinvented
doesn't
himself in a
exist."
whole different
If
direction
he
a
had
decade ago.
reimagined
Yeah.
himself,
2
then he
decades ago.
would be in a very different
Yeah.
and better situation today, but he kept grasping at something that didn't exist anymore, and therefore made himself not only ineffective, but, like, he's just living in a fantasy and losing, like, and just losing over and over and over again, and that is, I mean,
So
that's the
is it just a version of, seeing your reality clearly and accepting that you don't get the life you think you should have? There is no such thing as the life you should have. There's just the life you have, right? I
yeah.
mean, what did this look like or feel like for you coming home from prison? How did begin again apply for you? I mean, in a very literal sense, you got to get an apartment, you got to find a job, like, but how
I
did it
mean,
feel
I think,
psychologically?
well, so here's the thing that's different between me and this person, for example. Um, this person that you are describing was older than me when the treadmill of his life fell out from underneath him. And I didn't have as much momentum
Mm,
behind me about what I thought my life should be. Now, that isn't to say that I didn't have momentum. Like, maybe I didn't know what my career was going to be necessarily, or, where I was going to end up living, which are all, things that help
mhm,
us, like, that entrench us in the life we should be living and make us feel like we have momentum.
mhm.
But, like, I still had a vision for my life. I had a vision that I wasn't going to be in prison, and that I would
Yeah.
have a career, and that I would have a family, and those are big things that got taken away from me, and I never imagined that I would be a person whose reputation was like, utterly eviscerated on an international level, and that I would be known for the rest of my life for a horrendous crime that I had nothing to do with. Like, those are all big things that, like, have momentum to them, right? But I was still quite young. And I think that being young just naturally makes you more adaptive. I think that, so the fact that I learned that my life was not going to be what I thought it was going to be in a big way at like 20 years old was weirdly kind of like the ideal age because I wasn't so young that like I was psychologically just like broken from it, but I wasn't so old that I wasn't, like, deeply entrenched in a rhythm of my life, like that rhythm of life that you get into when especially when you're in your, like, 30s and 40s. You're like, "Hey, this is my life. I've been doing it this way. Here we go. These are my relationships. This is my job. Like, this is what I know." Like,
Mhm.
that's a different kind of momentum because it's not aspirational, it's, like, lived, you know?
Mhm.
Anyway, so I think that that's where the momentum of life has, like, weird soft power over you, where, like, you because nothing bad, like, presumably has happened to you in a big momentous way up to this point, you're just like, "Yeah, I made choices, and here I am on my journey, and I got what I'm getting what I deserve. I'm getting my paycheck. I have my relationship.
Mhm.
Check, check, check. Boxes checked." Um and then the world falls out from underneath you, and you're like, "Wait, I had those boxes checked. No! Like, I
I
shouldn't
mean,
have."
do you think that those big upsets early on changed your relationship with the sunk cost fallacy? Because I feel like a big part of why people often don't begin again,
Mm,
and whether it's in an argument or whether it's like, I should move to a new city or quit my job and switch careers or whatever, right? Or I should leave my spouse. And like, there's all kinds of versions of sunk cost. And in the argument version, it's like, but I've spent all this time trying to prove that I'm right,
right. Yeah,
you
totally.
know,
Yeah, that's
and
the
in the
momentum again. Yeah, that's
yeah, right,
the sunk cost fallacy is a way of talking about that kind of momentum where you say, "Well, I've already invested this much into this.
hmm,
I have to, like, even though it's a losing enterprise, I have to
yeah.
pursue it." And man, I don't
And there's
know
like,
if
wait,
it
like let's take the example of like moving to a new city. Like say that
Mhm,
you live in New York City and you find that you're just unhappy in this city for various reasons.
mhm.
And
But you're
you
like, "But my friends are here and my job is
yeah, and
here,"
you
and
have like there are real costs to picking up your life and moving to a new place. And there are potential real benefits to landing in a new place. Like maybe
Mhm.
you want to live in a more rural place where you have more opportunities to be surrounded by nature, whatever,
Or a
right?
warmer place. Yeah, there are
Yeah.
lots of things. Yeah.
Um, but one of those costs is not, but I spent all this time here building my network. It's
Mhm.
like, well, you might have, and you do have friends, and that's true. But the real cost that you're looking at is I would have to reestablish a social network
Right.
in
I
a
think
new
also the
place.
fear of the unknown versus the known plays into that as well, where you're like, "Okay, here's what I know. It's not like it's clearly not enough, but at least it's something."
Hmm.
And on the other side of this where I'm at, if on the other side, I don't even know what it's gonna be. It could be worse, and you know what? It could be, you know?
Yeah.
But you don't know that. And I I guess I don't know, maybe it's interesting that you're asking this. I hadn't really thought about 'cause
I
it's
mean,
not
your
that I
sunk
don't
costs are like when life forces you to begin again in like a huge way,
Mhm.
the momentum of that sunk cost, it's just kind of gets obliterated in a sense, right? I feel like
Yeah, yeah, no,
you
what I'm
you learn a
thinking of
lesson about sunk costs because they're just gone.
yeah, no,
It doesn't matter
I
how much
feel
you
like
time
I
you
do
put
not
into,
yeah, no, I do not fall prey to sunk cost fallacies. Which is an interesting thing. Like, I will absolutely walk out of a movie if I'm not having a good time watching it. Like, I don't care that I bought the ticket and the popcorn. Like, if I'm not enjoying a movie, I'm not going to
were you
suffer
like
through.
that before everything, or do you think your experiences gave you that tendency?
I'm trying to remember because I mean, again, like, I was a teenager, like, I was
Yeah.
literally a teenager and then this happened to me. So, like, it's not like I had a ton of life experience. I, as a kid, I did learn the value of sticking through difficult things.
Hmm.
So I think there's that tension between not falling prey to sunk cost, but also pursuing something difficult because you know that there's something valuable on the other side. And from a young age, it was instilled in me from various life experiences, but the one that I'm primarily thinking about is soccer,
Hmm.
that sometimes if acquiring a skill is really painful and also kind of boring. Like, painful in, like, a physically painful way, but painful also just in an existential way. Like, how many frickin' times do I have to bounce this frickin' ball on my knees to be
Yeah.
good at soccer? You know, like, you just or how many laps do I have to run? These endless fucking laps that I just have to run in order to be fit enough to compete at this game. Like, I learned from a young age, and I was really, um I was rewarded with, like, praise, for being willing to tough out
Hmm.
difficult situations, which you would think would mean that I might fall sucker to the sunk cost
Well, I mean,
fallacy, because I might
another
think,
thing that you learned in a big way is how fragile everything is, and how the things that you value in life that may be the results of hard work that you've put in, you've built for yourself, you spent a long time saving up money to be able to go to Perugia,
Mhm,
to have your brilliant study abroad experience. And then just in an instant, that vision is gone through no
mhm,
fault of your own. Right. So one thing I think that happens when you truly understand the fragility of all the good things in life is that it alters your relationship with the sunk costs, because the sunk costs that help keep you going on the path you're on, because you're worried about, I've already put in all this time. It's like, well, if you are already viewing your potential future as something that could vanish in an instant
mhm,
because of unforeseen circumstances,
mhm.
you're far less likely to stick out what you're doing based on the assumption that things are going to continue just fine just in the way they have been, if I keep on doing what I've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about what I now think about when things go sideways. And in my best moments, the wise thing in response to a bad turn of events happening that involves a sunk cost fallacy is you go, well, too bad. This thing that I wanted and was striving for isn't gonna happen. Next. Like,
Yeah.
just next. Like, let's put that down. We gave it a good go. Didn't work. Next. What's next? I want to know what's next. I don't want to waste any time torturing myself over how
Hmm.
it should have gone differently, you know? And I want to know what works. I don't want to waste my time because time is the most precious thing that we have. I do not want to waste my time on energy on a sinking ship when I can instead try out some new venture that has maybe better prospects. I mean, I think the really difficult thing about launching pivoting is that in a lot of cases, pivoting means either going into a situation knowing that it's going to be less than ideal. So, in the case of the person that you brought up, pivoting and beginning again would mean accepting a job with a less cushy salary in a new
Well,
career
it's going to
path,
be less ideal than what, right? It's going to be less ideal than the fanciful thing you had in your head, which doesn't exist
which
anymore.
doesn't exist anymore.
But it's
Right.
going to be more ideal than dwelling in the reality that doesn't exist anymore,
And
because
unemployment.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of like in the argument example, it's to sit there and go, my wife and I have really uh, spiraled in this way that has given a negative feedback loop, and acknowledging that and beginning again from a place of like, we've both hurt each other's feelings, like that's less ideal than in the place where I'm totally right and it was all your fault and you owe me an apology, right?
Mhm. Yeah, and
But
then you're, like, waiting for someone else to, like, Yeah, in those situations, I think one of the worst things that gets in people's way is expecting other people to take accountability instead of you just taking accountability for yourself. Like, you can't force anyone to take accountability for themselves. I'm sorry, like, you can't. That's why our whole, like, justice system is so screwed up in, like, a fundamental, like, principles kind of way, is that, like, ultimately, you can't force anyone to take accountability for their actions. All you can do is take accountability for yourself. And that's the first step. Like, that is the first and most important step towards changing the situation, which is bad, which you don't want. Like, it's
All right,
not somebody
let's bring
else's
it
job,
let's
like,
bring it back to the new year
okay.
here as we wrap this up. Like, I think there's, not everyone is facing some crisis all the time. Hopefully, many of the people listening to this are not in a crisis situation,
Mhm,
but there is a kind of general stock taking that people tend to do around the turn of the year.
mhm.
And how do you suggest people think about this idea of beginning again in their lives right now, which doesn't necessarily mean they have to do some total grand pivot, you know, or reinvent themselves. But like, what does it mean? How is it a valuable, thinking tool for people?
So, the thing I like about beginning again is the first part of it is just noticing. So, like, the pause and the taking the time to be still long enough to notice where you are. That is hugely important because I feel like a lot of people get swept up in the momentum of things because they don't feel like they have a choice, right? Like, they don't feel like they actually have a choice. They're riding this wave and they have to just, like, ride it out. And the really cool thing about beginning again is noticing that no, you you really don't. And actually, like, just the mere act of taking a moment to be still often leads to, like, the follow-up thought to noticing what the landscape is noticing that there actually are options that you can take that might feel like that would have felt completely counterintuitive, but that utterly changed the situation for you. So to bring it back to our New Year's Eve,
Hmm.
the thing that really helped me was realizing that you being all doom and gloom was actually kind of funny. like, like, I got to this mental space, don't ask me how, of, like, just, Chris is, like, working through his doom and gloom mentality, and, like, suddenly I just saw, like, every little instance of him being like, "Meh, it's cold outside. Meh," like, I just, like, instead of being, like, so angry at him about it, I was like, "That is fucking hilarious." And I just, like,
Your,
started
yeah,
laughing hysterically and not, like, kind of laughing at you, but also kinda laughing with you, because we were just like, "Wow, this is absurd." Like, our brain chemistry is so stupid. And, like, I just had, like suddenly I had, like, a buoyant energy about it, and that buoyancy sort of I think perked you up too, because you were like, "Yeah,
yeah.
this is really silly. Why do I wanna kill myself? That's so stupid." And we were, like, laughing about it, and, like, that did not feel like an option before I
Hmm.
began again. And
I think it might be worthwhile at the end here to contrast this with the idea of resolutions. And
Mhm,
I think one of the reasons that resolutions often fail for people when they make them around this time of year is that they don't stop.
mm,
That you have to pause, as you said, you have to sit there long enough in stillness to like notice. And if you just say, I'm quitting drinking, or I'm going to exercise every day. It's like, okay, like, sure, you can, it's like trying to repair your car while it's driving,
Mm.
you know,
Mhm.
like to begin again, you need to stop
Yeah.
for a second.
You need
And,
to pull up to
I
the
think
repair shop. Turn off the
yeah, I
engine.
mean, even the resolution framing is, it feels like it's anchored in the past. I'm doing this because I didn't do it before,
Mhm.
right? I'm fixing this. I'm resolving to change in some way. Like the
Mhm.
very idea of saying like I'm resolving to change is anchored by your conception of the way you operated as a human being before. And I think the framing of beginning again is more like, okay, stop. The clock starts now. What's my reality? What's my choice? What's my optimal choice given the reality I've just witnessed from this moment on? What is my
Mhm.
life like? What are my options like? What are my relationships like? What are my habits like? And how do I want to choose to act in relation to those things? That isn't to say because I've historically been this way, I'm now choosing to not be that way, which I feel like is what a lot of resolutions are like, you know?
Sure, yeah. You have to stop, you have to take stock, and you have to cultivate a space, like an environment in which this newness that you want to cultivate in you can actually thrive. Um, and I think like a lot of people want to be, I mean, everyone wants to be a better version of themselves. Figuring out what a better version of you is, what it actually really looks like involves some stillness though, to get like a clear vision of what that is and what it would take. And that's where the stopping and the noticing is the really important first step.
Well, speaking of stopping and noticing, I just want to reiterate that Amanda is hosting a guided meditation circle through the month of January. You can find the link to join those 5 p.m. Pacific meditation meetups on her Substack, amandaknox.substack.com. You'll also find a link to get the Waking Up app, which she is using for these guided meditations and a little follow up discussion about meditation every day. I'm going to be there helping moderate and letting people in and unmuting them, etc., helping with tech support. But please, join us for these meditation meetups each day through this 28-day course in January. And,
It's really easy peasy.
yeah.
Like it's I mean, I won't say that. I found it to be very accessible. And if you want to join me, that's great. If not, that's cool too. I'm just going to be doing that.
Well, any other final thoughts here for the new year?
Just that I hope everyone gets to be their best self. That's the best thing.
All right. Well, Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.